Hey guys, it's Elliot Ebenezer again from Somani Enterprise Tutors, and today I'm going to be showing you a tutorial on how you can convert a layout in an Android application to an image. Okay, so in order for us to do that, we're going to be creating an Android app that's going to be a Steem identity card generator. Okay, that's going to get details of a Steemian from the Steem blockchain, and then it's going to fill up a layout with its details like this. And then when the user clicks on the save button, this layout, which is now going to be the user's identity card, will then be saved on the user's mobile phone. Okay, so in order for us to do that, we had to set up our server side, and then for this tutorial I'm going to be looking at a server side which was written in JavaScript, Node.js, and then we're going to also talk about the Android part. So quickly, let's rush over to the Node.js part of it. All right, now this is the Node.js script, okay, with the name post id card.js. Okay, so this is requires some constant express body parser and then Steem itself. Okay, so the major thing is to know that this is a post function, so it handles post function for this root part slash post data. Okay, slash post data. Another thing for you to know is that we get a username from the request body with the field name username. All right, so we pass that into a function called showoff, which is defined right here, and then the username is sent in as the argument. Okay, and then this, what is this variable, is also a function. Okay, so it's a function, is a promise. Okay, and then we'll call the promise right here. Okay, now lastly, we now set the server to listen on port 8080, and then once the server is listening on port 8080, meaning that all the codes have been checked and then it's correctly written, and then we'll now print on the console that server is listening on port 8080. Please take note of this 8080, and then you have to take note of this slash post data. Okay, so this is very important, port 8080 and then the slash post data. Okay, so for our function showoff, all we just do is that we call the api.getAccount Steem method, okay, with the account as the argument. That's cutting right here, and then if the user is not found, we will send a reply that says this user doesn't exist. Okay, so we send it here, the promise. This is where we send the result back, and then if the user exists, we just get a few data from from the result gotten from the call to the API, Steem API. So first of all, we'll split in, because this is majorly where all the details we're going to be using is contained in the .json underscore metadata field if the API call is made. So we'll need things like the name, the image, the location, the ID of the user, the date joined. Okay, so we initialize all of this to null, and then we get the rank using format it using the formatter.reputation, and then we get the ID from here, and then the date joined is being initialized here, and then here we go through this meta variable, which is an array. Okay, because it's been splitted, the variables, the elements are being gotten from splitting this using this delimiter. Okay, so we then get the image here, the name here, the location here. So if the image is null, all right, we just set the image value to unknown. If it is not null, then we get the correct URL of the image. The same thing done with the name, the same thing done with the location. And then the final thing I'd like us to note here is this is what we are sending back to the app if the user exists. So we are sending the rank, we are sending an array object, so we are sending the rank, the image, the name, the location, the ID, and then the date the user joined. We are sending it back here. Okay, so now that being said, and then this is where we send it back. So res.send fulfilled. Okay, so this is gotten, and then we send it back. Now that being said, we'll move over to Android Studio. Okay, so I would just like to explain a few things here. First of all, in order for you to start this, you have to come to File, New Project. Okay, new project, give your application a name. All right, next. You can support from KitKat, next, and then an empty activity. Then you click on next, and then we are just going to follow the naming convention, main activity, and then you can click on finish. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is to put our dependencies. Now I just updated my Android Studio a few days ago, so instead of the normal compile that we're being used to, the Gradle changes it to, there's been an upgrade on the Gradle, so in order to make the build faster, we use implementation then. Alright, so we're going to be using Picasso in order to load the user profile image, and then we're going to be using this dependency layout to image, which is going to help us convert the layout to an image. Now retrofit and JSON and OKHTTP will be used to make the retrofit API call, and then Zing will be used to make the QR code. Alright, and then we're going to use butter knife for easy injection of fields. Okay, so after you've inserted all that, all you just do is to click on the Gradle refresh, and then once you are done with Gradle refresh, we'll jump over to the layout files. Okay, so start from the main activity underscore, the activity underscore main. Okay, now the activity underscore main just contains two elements: an edit text where the user will be able to put his Steemit username, and then an image button where the user will be able to click, and then once he clicks, an API call is being made to the server via our Node.js script. Okay, and then once the result is being gotten, the result will then be passed down to our app again. Okay, so the major thing you have to note here is the ID. So the ID of the edit text is username. Okay, and then the ID of the button is go_button. And then one other thing you need to note here is the source that we used for the button is a vector asset, which is this. Okay, which is this. So I'll just open it. That is a forward arrow. It looks just like this. I don't know why my preview is not yet on, it's not yet back, so it looks just like this. So in order for you to get that vector asset, you come to your drawable folder under your res folder, which stands for resource. Under drawable, right click, new vector asset, you click on the clip art in order to change it, and then you click on the arrow forward, you click on next. So in order for you to follow this tutorial, you just rename this. Okay, click on next, and then if you are done, you click on finish. Alright, so we set the source to a forward arrow, and then the root view is a relative view. Okay, so this is how it looks. So this is the edit text, and then this is the image button. Alright, so I'll just zoom this in so that I can have a better look on how that looks. So this has a hint of enter Steem username. So we're going to go over to the main activity.java, and then we're going to make an injection for the button, and then the edit text using butter knife. Okay, so here we are now. This first line is an injection for the edit text. Now in order to do that, you just drop your cursor on your layout file and hit Alt Insert, and then you can come to generate butter knife injections. Okay, so what we did is that we clicked on this for the edit text. It's going to inject this, and then the on click is going to be for the go button. Okay, so when you are done with this, you just click confirm. Okay, so this code will be added here, and then this block of code will be added here. Okay, this block of code. So if I remove that, okay, so something like this will be here, and then something like this will be injected here. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is that when the user clicks on the go button, we want to get the text inside of the edit text, which is being referenced by this username. So we get that by saying username.getText.toString. okay, so this entered username now contains the text the user entered here. So the first thing we want to check is if the username is empty. So if the username is empty, we're going to call a method, toast method, show toast, and then with the text username field cannot be empty. Now the show toast method is just a method that shows a toast. Okay, so this is the toast. Okay, so it makes a toast to the message. I beg your pardon. All right, now if the user name is not empty, we now make an API call. We call this method API call with the entered username. Okay, now in order to make an API call, because we're using retrofit, we need an API service, and then we also need an API client. Now for our API service, this is a file. Okay, so it is an interface. Okay, so for you to get this yourself, you come over to your Java file. Okay, here you place your cursor here, you right click, you go to new Java class. So you change this from class to interface, and then you can put API service. All right, so you click OK, and then what this does is just that this sets up a method for us to call when we are going to get the user details. So the name of this method is get user details, and then this is expecting an object of user details. Okay, this is a model class, and then remember this post data must be the same with this. So node.js will be responding to this slash post data URL, and then that is where we are sending our steemit username to. Okay, now another thing to note is the request.body.username must correspond to this field here. Okay, so this is the name of the field username, which is the same thing as this username. Okay, so it is a string, and then name is username1. So this indicates it's a post. If it was a get, to be like this. Okay, the annotation will be get, but then it is a post, so we use post annotation. And then form URL encoded. Okay, so this always goes together with a post like this. And then the name of the interface is API service. Okay, so now the user details class is just a model class. Okay, so this contains the details which we'll be getting from the server, the likes of name, the rank of the user, the image, the date to join, the location, and the ID. Okay, and then these are just getter and setter methods. So to get your getter and setter method, once you have declared all your variables, all you do is keep your cursor here, alt insert getter and setter. Okay, so that's one way to do it, or you can come to code, come to generate getter and setter, select all, and then you click on OK, and then that generates the getter and setter for it all. All right, so that's that about the API service. Another thing we need to take note of is another thing we need to have is an API client. Now the API client is just a Java class file. Okay, so to get the Java class file, you come under your Java folder here, you right click on new Java class and name it API client. Okay, now the API client, we're going to be declaring an OK HTTP client, which will define some properties of this client. The properties like connection timeout, the read timeout, the write timeout, if it's going to retry on connection failure. Okay, so all that is being defined here, and then it's static, means it can be accessed outside of the class. So static OK HTTP, this is the name of the object, is equals to new OK HTTP.new builder. Now this is the connect timeout, which indicates 120 seconds, which is 2 minutes. Okay, the read timeout is the same thing, the write timeout is the same thing, and then retry on connection failure is true, and then we build it here. Okay, so public static retrofit is equals to null, so this is what we'll be returning. So we declare a JSON builder. Okay, So we set it up here, and then this method is the most important method right here, is the get client method, which is going to return a retrofit variable. Okay, so if retrofit is equals to null, then we build the retrofit. How do we build it? To say new retrofit.builder. Okay, this is the base URL. Now this base URL, remember the port 8080 that I told you that Node.js will be listening on. So this is highly important. This part is highly important. Okay, now this URL is gotten from my PC because this tutorial will be using a local server, so Node.js is being hosted on my PC. So in order for you to get this, your Android mobile and then your laptop or your server must be on the same network. Okay, because it's local, they must be on the same network. So I created a hotspot for my phone and then I connected my system to it. So in order for you to get this of your PC, all you do is come to your command line and type ipconfig. Okay, so under your wireless LAN adapter Wi-Fi, you get it here. So mine is 192.168.8.101. so 192.168.8.101. so that is my base URL, and then my client is, the client is set to this client we defined here, and then the converter factory is this JSON we also defined here, and then we build it, and then we return the retrofit object that we built. All right, so in order for us to make the API call, we pass this as the user, we pass this as the argument to this method. So API, we need a service, so we make an object of the API service class, which is this. Okay, so we're going to use the method get user details. So service API service equals API client dot get client. Okay, this client, this get client, I told you was the most important method in that class. Okay, dot get client dot create using the API service class. Now user details, because we are, what we are expecting from the call to the API, what we're expecting is the type of user details. Now this means type of user details, okay, as a custom type. Now we now need to have a variable that can contain it. Okay, so we declare a variable called user details of type user details, and then call, it's a private variable. Okay, so what we now do is we say user details is equals to API service dot get user details, which is this method here in our API service class, and then we pass our argument, which is the username being set. Now remember that this takes one field. Okay, takes one argument, so we send it with this, and then we enqueue it, meaning we make the call. Now when you do this, you're going to override two methods, which is one, the onResponse method, and two, the onFailure method. So like the name implies, the onFailure method will be called if there is, if any failure has been encountered while making a call to the server, and then the onResponse method is going to be called if the call to the server was successful. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to check if the response code we got was successful. 200 stands for successful, and then we use an AND operator and then check if the response is successful. So if the response is successful, we get the user details, okay, from the response.body, the body, okay, of the response, and then we use an intent. Now the essence of this is that once we make the call and then the call is successful, we want to get the details of the user and then send it to a new activity, and then get those details we sent, populate that view, populate this view, and then we can save it, convert it to an image once the user clicks the save button. All right, now create an intent. So intent is equals to new intent, the context, the package context, and then this is the class we are sending it to, id card activity.class. All right, now in order for us to do that, we have to use extras. Okay, so extras, when you put an extra into an intent, it is a key value pair. Okay, so there must be a key, which is this, and then this is the value. Okay, so this key is for date joint. Okay, so we get the date joint from this user details, which is now containing the response we got from the call to the server. Okay, so user details dot get date joint, the location, the rank, the ID number, the name of the user, the steam username, and then the profile image URL. So once we put all this into our intent, what we do is we stack the activity. Okay, so once we start it, this activity, this ID card activity, would contain the details we sent using the intent. Now the next thing we have to do now, in order for us to get this ID card activity class, so for you to get that, you just come here, right click on new, right click new activity, click on basic activity, give your activity a name, the layout a name, the title. It is not the launcher activity since you already have a launcher activity. Now the hierarchical parent is needful so that we can have this up button. Okay, it's called the up button, not the back button. So you click these three dots, come to project, come to your app folder, src, which stands for source, main, Java, and then you select your long-term activity, which should be main activity, and then you click on finish. Now when you click on finish, you will have an activity XML, and then you have the content ID card. Now this is where we are mostly concerned about, because this is being included in. Okay, so an include statement is used to include this layout file, which is content underscore ID underscore card. Okay, for my app anyways. Now we need a layout like this. Okay, so we'll populate this with the details being sent by the main activity Java class. Okay, so we'll populate it here, and then when the user clicks on the save button, we are going to convert this to an image and save it in the user's smartphone. All right, now all we have here is a relative layout. Okay, so the relative is the root layout for this XML file. So we have a padding all around of 5 dp, that's to the left, to the right, to the top, and to the bottom. Now the next thing we have is a relative layout. Now this relative layout, mind you, has the ID of ID card layouts. Okay, so this is the layout responsible for holding all the details of the ID card. Now the next layout we have, now it has a background of rounded corners. Okay, now rounded corners is what helped us, okay, to be able to get these rounded corners, okay, by the edges. So I'll take you there, and this is how it looks like. Okay, so it has a solid color of white, which is this, a stroke of black, outer stroke of black. Okay, so the corners have a radius of 20. So the more this is, the more bent the corners get. So if I change that to 30, see how it looks. If I change it to 50, okay, so we'll just stick with 20, and then it has a padding of 0 to the left, to the right, to the top, and to the bottom. Okay, so that is what we use to achieve this. All right, so this is a linear layout that contains the heading, okay, the text of Steemit identity card, and then the image, the Steemit logo. Okay, now in order for you to include this Steemit logo into your application, all right, I have mine just here, so I have it just here. So if I open that quickly for us to see, okay, so that is it. So you can copy this So you just right click on it, click on copy, click on copy, go back to your Android Studio, go under your rest folder, your drawable, right click, click on paste. Okay, you can paste it in your drawable folder, then you can rename it, and then once you are done you click on OK. Okay, so this is the text view. Width of 0, weight of 3, the gravity is aligned to the center, padding bottom of 10, padding top of 10. This is the text being displayed there. Okay, the text color is white, FFFF stands for white, text size of 18, text style of bold, and then this is the image view which contains our Steemit logo. Okay, now the next thing is a relative layout which contains the other parts of the ID card. Things like the profile image, the Steemit username, the ID, the name, the location, the rank, the date joined. And then one important thing is to note is this image view right here, which will be used to display the QR code. Okay, so it has an ID of QR code, and then I've used the naming convention for all of these details. Like for the date is just date, and then for the text holder is date underscore text. So we have rank, which is the major one which we are going to have to initialize rank, and then the text up is rank underscore text. Same thing with location, location underscore text. Then we have Steemit username, which is this, then username, name text, like that, and then ID number. Okay, so we're going to have to inject all this. We're going to have to inject it using our butter knife plugin. Okay, so I'll go to my ID card activity. Now in order for us to inject this into our ID card activity like we did, we're going to put our cursor on activity underscore ID card, click on alt insert, generate butter knife plugin, and then I would unclick that. So we don't need the toolbar, we don't need this, we don't need this. What we need is the user image. We don't need the ID text, we need the ID text number, we need the username, we need the Steemit username, we need the location, the rank, the date, the QR code, and then we need the ID card layout. Okay, because this is the layout which we are going to be using, and then we're going to convert it to an image. So once you've done selecting all that, you just click on confirm here. Okay, now one other thing, and then this will be injected, all these views will be injected, okay, for you. And the next thing I want us to draw attention to is the menu which we used, okay, which will be used which will create the option for saving. Okay, so it will be, it's a vector asset also, which is this. Okay, vector asset which has the ID of save. Okay, and then the icon is drawable of IC underscore save, and a vector asset called IC underscore save. The show as action, okay, ensures that this image is always shown. Okay, it's always shown right here. And then for us to get this image, same thing we did, we could come to drawable, right click, new, vector asset, click on the clip art icon, okay, so I'll just wait for it to come up. And then I can search for save. Okay, so I'll select this, click on OK, can change this to IC underscore save, click on next, and then I can click finish. Okay, now that will be that. All right, so once you inject the views, you have this also. Okay, so this is with it, this, Now we'll call a set details. Okay, so this method will get the details sent from the activity, main activity, set it to the views. Okay, set it to the text views, set it to our text views. Okay, and then once it sets it to our text views, then we wait for the user to click on the save button. Okay, so now we use an intent, a get intent, to be able to get the values being sent from the main activity class. Okay, so we store all the values we got in string variables like id number string, username number string, steemit username string, location string. And then for us to get this is we're going to use get intent.get string extra, and then we're going to pass in the key. Okay, so for the number, for the id number, we passed in a key of, alright, so I'll show you the key from the main activity class. Alright, so we passed for the id, this is what we used, we got the id and then we passed it with id number. So in getting that same value in our id card activity class, we're going to use the same key, id number. So the same for username, so we check the name, for the username we sent name as the key, so we get that, and then the rest applies steemit username for the steemit user value, the location key for the location, the rank for the rank, the date joined for the date the user joined. Now getting all this in strings, the last thing we then need to do is to load the user profile, which we are going to be using the Picasso for. Okay, so we say Picasso dot with, so this is the index, this which is our id card activity dot load. Now this is the URL which the user will be loading, and do not forget that we pass this with our intent with the key profile image. So if you check profile image, okay, so user details or get email, okay, so you pass that there into, so what image view would you like to have this image loaded in? It is loaded in our image view with the id user underscore profile image, all right, which will be tied with this name user profile image, which is right here. Okay, the next thing we did was to set the text of all our text views. Okay, so id number to set text with this username, okay, with your string variables. Okay, so the steemit username, the location, the rank, the date. Now in order for us to get our QR code, okay, we just concatenated the values of these strings. Okay, so the name, we use username string, id number, we put the id number string, the location, we put the location string, the rank, put the rank string, then the date joined, we put the date string, the steemit username, we put the steemit user string. Okay, now we will use a multi-formatter writer. Okay, this is what we're going to use to write the QR code into our bitmap. So bit matrix, okay, an object of bit matrix, use the format writer that we declared here, and then we encode our QR code, which is this, just is some strings, and then we use the barcode format, which is the QR code. A width of 600 and a height of 600 is declared here. Then the barcode encoder object is used to encode the bit matrix. Okay, so bitmap is equals to barcode encoder dot create bitmap using the bitmap matrix. So this bitmap object is what holds our barcode now, and then we are going to set this image view. We're going to set it using a set image bitmap, and then we're going to set the bitmap there. All right, now that being said, the next thing we needed to override an uncreate options menu. Okay, so this will be called to create an options menu, and then to override this you just press Ctrl O, okay, to get a list of methods you can override, and then search for on create options. Now because this is already here, when you search for create options menu, it will be highlighted and then you click enter. Now when you click enter, then you use the get menu inflator, then you inflate the menu using this line, and then you return true. Now the next thing we want to do is to override the on options item selected. So this method will be called if an item is selected from the options menu. Okay, so we use a switch statement to get which ID. So if we had multiple IDs, this switch statement will be seen. So we now get if the save button was clicked, we'll call this method save image. Now what this save image method does is it converts the layout to an image, to a bitmap. Okay, so from there we can then convert it to an image and save on the user's device. Now we use a layout to image object. Okay, so layout to image, it takes in two arguments, this the context and then this class, and then the layout which you want to convert to an image. Now remember, this layout I told you to take note of is the relative layout that contains the whole ID card. Okay, now that's what we set as the second. Okay, now we get a bitmap and then we convert, we call the dot convert layout method on the layout to image object. Okay, so this bitmap now holds the bitmap of our image. Okay, now the next thing we now want to check is we want to check if, because from SDK in version of 23 upwards, okay, you must get permission, runtime permission. Okay, and then lower than 23 the permission is granted automatically on runtime. So we want to check if the right storage permission is granted. Okay, so this is a boolean variable that returns true or false, and then if that is granted, we now save image to phone. We call this save image to phone method. All right, now for this method we have a boolean variable called boolean return variable is equals to false. Its initial value is false. Now we check if the build version of the phone, meaning if the OS is greater than build version 23, we then have to check if the external storage is writable. Okay, so if it is, what we just do is we get the state. Okay, we get the external storage state. So if it is mounted, we return true. If it is not mounted, we return false. So how do we get if it is mounted? We use the environment of variable environment.media_mounted.equals state. Okay, so if this state is mounted, it returns true to this, and then we check. Okay, so we use the check self permission, all right, to check. So we use our manifest. So which permission are we checking for? We are checking for the right external storage permission. So if it is equals to granted, meaning if the user has granted us this permission, we set this return value to true. Else, if the user has not granted us the permission, we request for the permission from the user. And then what do we request for? We request for the right external storage, which requires scope 2, and then we return false. Okay, so this else statement is for this if. So if the user OS version is not that of SDK greater than 23, it automatically returns true. Okay, so once you have true here, you return, this method returns the return value here. So if this is true, we call this method save to phone, which will now save the image to the phone, the bitmap. Okay, so this is the method. So this is the method declaration or initialization. Now, so we have a string called location. Okay, so this just gets the directory storage, the external directory storage of your device using the environment object, and then we create a new file. Okay, using the location now as the parent, and then the child, this will now be the name of the image. Okay, so steem id card.png. So this is going to be in your internal, and then steem id card.png. So this is going to be the name of the image to be saved. Then we need a file output stream. To initialize it to null. So new file output stream with this part, which is here, and then we now compress it using the compressed format of JPEG. So we now save it here with the quality of 100, and then use the file output stream as the argument. So if that is done, finally we now have to close the file output stream. First we need to check if the file output stream is not equals to null, and if it's not equals to null, we close it. Okay, so guys, that is that about the Android version. Now it's time for us to test our app, but before we test our app, our Node.js server must be running. Okay, it must be running, and then in order for us to do that, I have to go to the location where I saved my post id card.js file. Okay, so in order to get there, I'll go to my XAMPP folder, htdocs, node. Okay, so if I list the files there, you see it, post id card.js. So I'll use node okay, to start it. So we'll just wait for a few moments. Starting node post id card.js. So the server is listening on port 8080. So guys, thank you for watching. The next screen you'll be seeing is my Android phone screen, where I'll be running the Android application, and then we'll be saving it. So thank you for watching.